Hi, everybody. I just want to welcome all the secondary schools to our Mental Health Week presentation. We are so glad to have the Stigma-Free Society here presenting to our secondary school classes. I know that some are going to be coming on during the block changes and the block orders, and we'll have people coming on and off. But we know that we're also going to be recording this. And so if any teachers or staff want to see this afterwards, we'll definitely have a recording on our district Microsoft Stream for everyone to see. But today we're very glad to have the Stigma-Free Society and their wonderful presenters present to us during this Mental Health Week about mental health and wellness. And we do so in Surrey on the traditional territories of the Katzie, Semiahmoo, Coast Salish, and Kwantlen First Nations. We're so proud and happy to be sharing our lands with our Indigenous partners. And so, I am not going to speak for very much longer, but I just want to thank all the teachers and staff and administrators who are signing in today at some point during this hour and a bit to be able to listen to these stories of these young people who really have struggled with mental health but have come through and are willing to share their story with us. So with that, I'm going to turn the stage, I guess, so this online platform over to Andrea Paquette from Stigma-Free Society and her staff, and I'm going to slowly disappear because it's not about me, it's about all the people in front of you. So Andrea, go for it.
Perfect. Thank you, Daniel, and thank you everybody for joining us today. Us at the Stigma-Free Society, we're very excited to come here to share our personal stories of living with mental health challenges and facing additional stigmas as well. And so I'm just really pleased to be working with the Surrey School District from the Stigma-Free Society. We have been partners since 2016, doing a lot of work in the schools. So who I am, I'll just introduce myself a little bit to start with. My name is Andrea, of course, and I originally founded the Stigma Free Society as the Bipolar Disorder Society in 2010. And so the Stigma Free Society's cause is very special to me. We create awareness of various stigmas and mental health. As well, we create understanding and the acceptance of ourselves and other people. I personally was diagnosed with a mental illness called bipolar disorder back in 2005. It was very tragic for me. I barely made it through. And so when I started sharing my personal story in 2009 to 15 students starting in a classroom, to this day, I've shared to over 50,000 students. So, using the platform for the last 12 years and leading the charity, I like to empower other people to share their personal stories. And that's always been a really significant goal of mine personally. So, the Stigma Free Society, I thought what I could do is share our website. I thought that would be the best way to learn a little bit more about Stigma Free and what we do. So, here we are going to the Stigma Free Society website, stigmafreesociety.com. And when you come here, you will notice that we have a listing about our charity where you can find out more about us, from our team to our champions to our partners, etc. As well, we have many programs at Stigma Free, and the one that we are sharing with you today is the virtual Stigma Free presentations, where we basically come to you online here, share our personal stories, and talk about mental health. You can also see a lot of media on the Stigma Free Society website. We have a blog if you're interested in reading, and you can contact us at any time if you have questions, comments, feedback, or anything of the sort. So, what I'm going to do to start off the presentation is introduce our speakers, and I would really like for everybody to share a little bit about yourselves. And Samara, I thought that I could start with you. Did you want to share a little bit about yourself?
For sure. Thanks, Andrea. So, hi, everyone. My name's Samara. I'm a presenter with the virtual Stigma Free presentations program at the Stigma Free Society. I'm also a programs manager at the Stigma Free Society. And I'm really excited to be here today and to share my story and my lived experience with all of you. It's something that I'm very passionate about. So, very happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Samara. Nathan, why don't you share a little bit about yourself and say hello?
Hello, everyone. I am Nathan. I've been a stigma-free presenter for a couple of years, And something that I really like is nature. And that is ironic right now because I'm in a country that has a ton of nature, and it's like well known for its nature, of Iceland, actually. So Iceland, the country I'm in right now, is actually ironically probably the best for your mental health.
Nice. You're in Iceland. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. And Josh, share a little bit about yourself.
My name is Josh. Josh Kunken. I've been a stigma-free presenter for about a little over a year now, which is crazy to me. I'm very passionate about sharing my story, and I also really love sports. It's probably my favorite thing to do. My favorite sports are basketball, soccer, and football. So yeah, that's just a bit about me.
I was just going to ask you, what are your favorite sports? And then you completely just took away my question. So that's okay. All right. So, everybody, what we're going to start off with is a little bit about mental health education, about stigma, the importance of reaching out for help. And I'm just going to take you to a booklet that we have for the virtual stigma free presentations. So as you can see here, mental health and stigma for grades 8 to 12. So today we're going to be exploring about mental health, mental illness, and how to take care of ourselves. So mental health is really part of our overall well-being. And it's really important to take care of ourselves. It's important to maintain our mental health and how we're feeling. You're going to learn today about mental health and the difference between mental illness, as well as ways to support yourself with your brain health, with your mental health. So, if you're ever facing hard times when it comes to your mental health, it's really important to reach out for help. And we're going to discuss that today and who to reach out to. And we will also be looking at stigma during this presentation and learning what it is, who it affects, and mental health and stigma are deeply connected. So, we're going to share exactly what stigma is. And I'm sure many of you have an idea so far. It's really important to learn about both mental health and stigma as they are interconnected. So once we understand stigma, we can determine how to live a more strict stigma-free life. So what does that mean? It means being aware of the stigmas that exist in the world, developing an understanding of the challenges that many people face, and being more accepting of ourselves and other people. So what is mental health? Well, mental health includes our emotional, mental, and social well-being. So our mental health affects how we think and how we feel and even how we act. It also helps us shape how we cope in the world and how we handle stress and even how we relate to others and the choices that we decide to make. So everybody has mental health. Mental health can shift from good to bad and back again throughout the day and over the course of our lives as well. So, what's the difference between mental health versus mental illness? So, as I just mentioned, everyone has mental health, but not everybody faces mental health challenges or mental illness. And it's really important to know the difference. So, mental illnesses are mental health conditions that involve changes in emotion, thinking, and behavior. And it's usually a combination of all these three things. So, mental illnesses, they're related to being upset, as an example, emotionally for a long period of time, such as 2 weeks or more. Many of us, we all get sad, but when it comes to mental health, um, when the feelings don't go away, they're pervasive, those 2 weeks or more, then that's when we need to be concerned. As well, mental illness can cause problems dealing with social work or family activities. And mental illness is usually diagnosed by a doctor or also a psychologist or a mental health doctor, which is a psychiatrist. But we have to remember that not everybody has access to a diagnosis, but their experiences are valid as well. So, some examples that you may have heard about mental illness, some of these conditions can include depression, anxiety disorder, bipolar disorder, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which is also known as ADHD. So, taking care of our mental health. There are many ways that we can do this, and I just want to provide some examples for you. So, number one, pay attention to how you feel. You need to really look at what emotions you're experiencing right now. And if you're experiencing challenging emotions, maybe consider what you can do to boost your mood. Being aware of our emotions, first and foremost, really helps us pinpoint what is going on in our body and our mind and what we need to do to feel better. So, taking care of your mental health, number two, take time each day to do the things that you love. Life can get very busy with homework and school. Some of us are working as well after school. There's a lot going on with a lot of responsibilities. And so it's really important that we take time each day to do things that bring us joy. And as an example of this, as Nathan mentioned, spending time in nature. Try to go for a walk every evening, play sports. There's so many things that you can do, even if it's in small doses, like 15 minutes. It could help lift up your mental health. Number three, it's really important to spend time with family and friends, and staying connected to others is really important for your mental health. I always say, as human beings, we need connection. And if you don't have time to see people in person, send them a text or give them a video chat. That works as well, just as long as you're staying connected to other people that you care about. Number four, please make sure your basic needs are met. So, your physical health and your mental health are deeply connected. And if you're not taking care of your body, your mind will suffer. So, if you're feeling low, as an example, ask yourself these questions: have I eaten today? Have I had enough water? Did I get enough sleep? So, those are basically an example of your basic needs. And just make sure that they are met because your brain and your body are deeply connected. Number five, move your body. Physical activity is proven to boost mood, and it really does help with the symptoms of anxiety. Movement can look different for everyone, whether it's running, walking, dancing, swimming, and playing sports. So, with moving your body, with that physical and that brain health being deeply connected, it's really important that you move. As I mentioned, we are going to talk about reaching out for help. So, when when difficult feelings start to affect your everyday life and prevent you from doing your normal activities, this is the time when perhaps you should reach out for help. When we have these new or difficult and challenging feelings that just don't go away, it can feel very scary. But you don't have to suffer in silence, and you don't have to suffer on your own. The truth is, we all face challenges, and it's okay to not feel okay sometimes. You may have heard that saying before, because truly, it is okay to not feel okay. Questions you can ask someone. So if you're reaching out for help, you can say things like, "Hey, I'm feeling really, really down right now," as an example. "Could I talk to you about it?" Or you could say something like, "I think I need help, but I'm worried about what others will think about me. Can I trust you to listen without judgment?" Asking that person just to be that listening ear. Or you can say something like, "I'm ready to reach out for help. Who do you think I should talk to?" And so, who to reach out to? And we'll give you some examples. So, number one, someone you trust, as we said, first and foremost. So, think about who you feel very comfortable with sharing your feelings. It could be a parent, an older sibling, an aunt, uncle, or grandparent. Number two, Kids Help Phone is a great resource, and you can talk to someone by texting "connect" to 686868. We have them on our website, and they're easily findable on Google. You can as well phone a counselor 24/7, and this is the 1-800 number, 1-800-668-6868. Really easy to remember. Kids Help Phone is a great resource for people who need to talk, for young people who need to talk. So, number three, and of course, if you feel you're in danger, please know that it is okay to call 911. And number 4, you can chat online anytime from noon till 1 a.m. at Youth in BC. Their website, youthinbc.ca. It's a wonderful resource. And so a lot of the times people don't want to get on the phone because maybe it's uncomfortable, but chatting online is an option. As well, number 5, finding a counselor or psychologist that is right for you. And this is a website here at Psychology Today. Your trusted person can help you reach out to perhaps a counselor or a psychologist. And number 6, even talking to your doctor is really important. When you make an appointment with your doctor, being very transparent and honest about what you're going through will make all the difference. So, what is stigma? I keep talking about this, so I want to give it definition. So, stigma is a hurtful judgment that leads to someone being excluded or seen as different from others. People experience stigma based on characteristics that make them unique. So, as an example, people can experience negative judgment because of their physical appearance. As well, gender identity, age, their sexual orientation, race, ethnic, I can never say that word, ethnicity, there you go, education level. As well, people are negatively judged for having a mental illness and as well as having a disability. And there are many more circumstances where people are stigmatized. So let's look at 2 types of stigma. There's self stigma, which is a negative belief that someone has about themselves. It can keep them from reaching out for help and support from family and friends or professionals. So, self stigma is the way we think about ourselves. It's that shame inside because of what we face, because of the stigma that we're facing often from societal stigma. And societal stigma is a negative belief that society has about a specific group of people, and it's typically based on a stereotype. So, self stigma is how we feel about ourselves, stigmatizing inside, and societal stigma is when people judge others. As an example, since this presentation is around mental health, I would like to share about people living with a mental illness sometimes experience stigma as an example. So, an example of this is when people use words like, that person is crazy. Wow, she is so insane, or they're a psycho. Even in day to day language, we are seeing stigma all the time. These words are often used in a negative way, implying that people with mental illness are bad or wrong. I do get a lot of comments about language, and people just simply say to me, it's not a big deal. And I don't believe it's about being politically correct per se, but just about being respectful. And our language evolves over time. These kind of words can be very hurtful because they imply that living with a mental illness is a bad thing or that it's a character flaw. But in reality, anyone can live with a mental illness, and you cannot tell by looking at someone if they do. So, experiencing stigma can have a very negative effect on a person's mental health, whether this is self stigma inside with that personal judgment of being ashamed or by judging others. For example, if someone is being bullied, this can lead to them feeling unworthy, sad, and really alone. So at Stigma Free Society, we explore the connection between mental health and stigma and lifting up the stories of other people who have mental health experiences and faced other stigmas as well. And when you listen to the lived experience of others, it is the best way to reduce stigma. So, the effects of stigma on mental health can include somebody could experience reduced hope, they can have lower self esteem, they can have a lot of difficulties with social relationships, and they can face a lot of challenges and difficulties at work or school as well. So, what does living stigma free mean when we talk about this? So, Living stigma-free means being aware of the stigma that exists in the world. So it's education, it's awareness, first and foremost. And then from that education, developing an understanding of the challenges that people face. And then next, being more accepting of ourselves and other people. So when we break down the stigma in our lives, we can have an impact on others. And words that describe someone who aims to live stigma free, they are accepting and understanding. They're open minded. They're a lifelong learner. They're very respectful and they are aware. So, here are some tips on how to break down stigma. It begins with you. Number one, accept yourself first. So, reducing stigma starts with looking inside. And we can work to accept ourselves and aim to understand the challenges that all people face. Number two, you can come to our website, which I showed you, and take the Stigma Free tool and the Stigma Free pledge. So visit our website to help assess your attitudes about stigma privately. And you can do that with the tool. And then with the pledge, you can make a commitment to be more understanding and accepting of yourself and others. Number three, learn more about stigma. There is so much to learn. There are many stigmas that exist, and I just listed a few for you today. So educate yourself. It's a good avenue to understanding stigma's impact and exactly what you can do about it to take action. Number four, be open to learn about the personal experiences of others, which is what you're doing today. So people who have faced stigma naturally understand how it can negatively impact a person's life. You can watch stories of stigma documentaries to learn more on our website as well. And just listening to people who have been there can really create connection between others. So, number five, you can start a stigma free club at your school. We have had some schools that have taken on this initiative to promote leadership at the school, and it promotes acceptance and understanding in the school environment. So, taking care of your mental health, it really starts with small changes in your life. We can't be stigma free overnight. We can't change our mental health completely in one day, but we definitely can work towards it. And you need to know that the small changes will make a significant difference for you. Know that you're not alone. There is always help and there is always hope. And as well, when we explore mental health and stigma, we can see how stigma and bullying can cause exclusion, and it can have a really negative impact on somebody's mental health. So, really, it's up to you to be stigma free by being aware, by being understanding, and accepting of yourself and others. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the educational component of the virtual presentation. This is the time where I would really like to invite our presenters, starting with Josh, to share his personal story. And I'll let you take it away, Josh. So there you go.
All right. Thank you so much, Andrea. And I'm sorry, I've lost my voice a little, so sorry, I apologize about my croaky voice. But hi everyone, my name is Josh Kunken, and I'm so thankful to be speaking with all of you today. Today I'm going to tell you about attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. I will describe both the benefits and drawbacks of having ADHD. I will outline what ADHD is and how it affects millions of people. And lastly, I will explain why ADHD and focus is important and how you can help yourselves and each other with issues of focus and concentration. I was diagnosed with ADHD in grade 5, and I have had quite the journey with understanding how it affects me and others. I have come a long way and want to share my experiences with you guys in hopes of reducing stigma and giving you a better understanding of ADHD. I'm now going to demonstrate what might be happening in my brain in the middle of class while in school. Another person with ADHD may have a totally different experience, but this scenario I find happens to me quite a bit. Oh, what's that thing up there? Oh, that guy has a really cool pencil. Oh, he's definitely playing video games in the corner. I wonder what's for dinner today. Oh, I hope it's pasta. I love pasta. Are we talking about Shakespeare again? Ugh, this chair is so annoying. I really want to go outside and play basketball. That'd be amazing. Ow, bang my knee on the table. Better stop fidgeting. Josh, can you answer the question, please? Huh? Sorry, can you please repeat the question, Miss Warner? Why did Caesar say, "Et tu, Brutus," in Shakespeare's play Julius Caesar? Miss Warner, I believe Caesar said this because he was so shocked to see his best friend Brutus betraying him. Wow, Josh, I'm surprised you got that right. You seem so distracted. Of course I was distracted, Miss Warner. I have ADHD. Today, I would like to speak to you guys about my Brutus, my best friend that could sometimes betray me, my ADHD. For those of you who don't know who Brutus is, he's a character in a famous play about the king Julius Caesar. In the play, he was Caesar's best friend who ended up betraying him. ADHD is like a best friend because it can give me endless energy. I can be dead tired after basketball practice and then bounce back after 15 minutes. I can come up with ideas quite quickly and think on the spot, sometimes too many ideas all at once. I generally don't get stressed about things because nothing really stays in my mind too long and I just move on. For example, the thought may cross my mind that I have a test the next day, but then that thought is gone before I can even get too stressed. I may lose my phone, but I get distracted even looking for it. It makes me a very relaxed person, one of the most Hakuna Matata people around. However, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Let me explain how ADHD, my Brutus, can also betray me. Since I can be so distracted, I often don't register little things such as where I put my shirt, my laptop, my soccer cleats, my homework. You get the point. It's not fun constantly misplacing, finding, and then losing again all of my things. It's also really hard for me to focus and get work done. And since I'm always thinking of something else, I often make mistakes in tests. My brain has a really hard time planning ahead, and long term projects like book reports can end up being complete last minute disasters. Teachers sometimes think I'm not interested in their lessons, even though I might really like the topic. All of this affects my grades, but I know I'm a lot smarter than my grades show. The worst part is, people can sometimes find me loud, uninterested, and frustrating. This can affect my relationship with my friends, teachers, and parents, which in turn affects what I think of myself, my self esteem, and my identity. All of these are the benefits and drawbacks of ADHD and why it is my Brutus, my best friend that can betray me. This is the dilemma with ADHD, and it can be pretty hard. ADHD is defined by an ongoing pattern of inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. Some people do not have the hyperactivity part, though. That's called ADD. ADHD affects the front part of the brain and results with difficulty in attention. Impulsivity is just not thinking before you make a decision, and it may lead you to do something pretty stupid. But as I said, this isn't always a bad thing, and many people with ADHD do really well in life. One of the most inspirational figures in my life is my 90-year-old grandfather who has ADHD. On one hand, my grandfather is so forgetful, disorganized, impulsive, scatterbrained. And on the other hand, he's a math genius, reads and writes 5 languages, and consistently found innovative ways to overcome major hardships in his life to pursue his dream of becoming a math teacher. Another example is of a boy who hated school and performed poorly, so he constantly got into trouble and left school when he was 15 to start his own company. He had a lot of great ideas, tons of energy, and people were drawn to him. This led him to become an entrepreneur, building a major record label called Virgin Records, owning a large airline fleet, sending tourists into space, and inventing an underwater plane. Richard Branson is living proof of the benefits and drawbacks of having ADHD, and how it sometimes does not fit well within the traditional, often rule oriented, structured school system doesn't work. But with the ever changing open market, the real world does. People with ADHD are often disruptors. They have the idea, energy, and risk taking nature to tear down old traditions and create something completely new and valuable. Did you know that people with ADHD are 300% more likely to start their own companies? Many top athletes, musicians, artists, writers, and scientists of the world have ADHD. You see, people with ADHD don't have a deficit in focus for all things. People with ADHD, like myself, have hyper focus for the things they love, their passions, whether it is business like Richard Branson, math like my grandfather, and sports for me. This is why we have the potential to be innovators. When we are supported, people with ADHD can be leaders. Unfortunately, it is not always a happy ending for those with ADHD. Many don't end up reaching their potential because of their symptoms of impulsivity or learning issues. About 20% of teens with ADHD skip school repeatedly. A third fail or repeat a year, and a staggering 30 to 40% of people with ADHD will eventually drop out of school. Those who leave high school are more likely to be unemployed, unhealthy, be a victim of a crime, go to prison, or become homeless. This is a massive loss and burden to individuals' families, the education system, the judicial system, and society in general. Something needs to be done about this. One of the biggest problems with ADHD is the lack of support for students who need to get through a school system that is not necessarily a good fit for them. The biggest problem with ADHD is the stigma. Many teachers don't understand ADHD or how it works in the brain. They may think these children are lazy or not even very smart. When I was in the 3rd grade, my teacher said I didn't put any effort into my science project on turtles when I worked on it all night and I thought it was amazing. This made me feel really hurt, like I couldn't do anything right, and it eventually led me to hate school. Even some parents don't understand their own children or see their true potential. My mom used to get really mad at me, thinking I was ignoring her when my mind was meandering. However, sometimes the people who stigmatize ADHD the most may be the ones who have it themselves. In grade 5, I didn't want to go to the resource class, wear my noise canceling headphones, or use any of my accommodations because I was embarrassed and insecure. So here's my message to all of you. First of all, take care of yourself. We all need basic self care. Getting over 9 hours of sleep, daily exercise, and social connection are all vital for my mental health. If you do have ADHD, be comfortable and proud of who you are. Where there is a deficit in the brain, there are often strengths and exceptional functions. ADHD is a part of natural neurodiversity, meaning that all of our brains are different, and it is our differences that make us unique. Second, speak up and ask for what you need. Maybe you need to exercise, go play basketball or another sport. Maybe you need a different space to do your assignments or write your tests. Maybe you need more or just some help with a topic. Ask for what you need. No one else knows what's happening in your mind. Lastly, help others. Reduce the stigma of ADHD. Help your friends who may be struggling with it. Educate your friends, teachers, and parents. This is who we are as a wonderfully diverse human species. Nature needs neurodiversity. We need to think and approach problems differently from each other, not just to survive, but to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. I always love when you share your story, and I love the fact that you're 16 years old and that you can really relate to people, young people in schools. And I always, yeah, really appreciate you being a stigma-free presenter. So thank you for sharing your story. So I want to call on Nathan, and I was wondering if you would love to share your story all the way from Iceland.
Yes, I would. And actually, there'll be a couple Iceland metaphors within the story, funny enough. Anyways, so basically, as you all know, I'm Nathan, and my story is about how I never wanted to talk about my label because I had a fear around the label, from internal stigma to self stigma to other stigma, which is why I never wanted to talk about my own label. So basically, this whole story starts when I'm 2 years old, and that's because I get diagnosed with autism. My parents noticed that something wasn't right with me as a kid. If I wasn't talking at the age of 2, and secondly, if a bull were to shadow right beside me right now, if I was younger, like the age of 2, I would have not noticed and it would have remained oblivious. Because of those two things, they decide to go through the diagnosis process with speech pathologists, psychologists, all sorts of people, which I don't remember because I was very young. But the point is, I ended up getting diagnosed with this label, which meant there was going to be a challenge for me. Basically, the mental health challenges I dealt with, as I mentioned, were internal stigma, being insecure about my own label, and the whole point of the story I'm going to talk about is the learning to accept the label and live a happy life. So, because of this label and the thing I got diagnosed with, I had to learn things that people take for granted and don't have to spend as much time learning. For example, I had to learn the basic skill when I was young of doing that because I need to do things in steps. And I had to learn basic skills, and I even had to learn how to talk, which some people didn't even think I would do. And I managed to do it with all this practice of tutoring, all this 40 hours of practice of tutoring at the age of 6. And as I say, my tutoring hours went down, but I still had to learn skills. I had to learn skills such as drinking a water bottle, to executive functioning skills such as talking in a presentation right now and being calm. As I say, learning these skills were tough on me though, because I had to take longer to learn something than everyone else. Everyone else would just look at the kid talking, and they would enter the conversation. Not for me. For me, it had to be a 6-step guide, like learning a language, like learning the rules of a language. For example, learning the past tense of Spanish, for example. Like I had to know the different tenses of the social language, which made me at times feel very frustrated because I felt like I was not going to get it. And I felt like, why are we doing this? Like, why are we going over it so many times? I got it. I like almost frustrated to do it because I felt like I didn't want to do it, didn't want to put the extra time in to do it or feel different. And that's the important piece, the language. As I say, if you go to Spain and you go to, as I say, go to Spain, you're going to have to speak Spanish there. And some people might help you out with English, but not everyone. And that is like the world. Some people may help you out being different, but some people won't help you out with your social language, which means, like learning Spanish for Spain, you have to learn it for the world, which is why to learn things such as conversations, how to not do this thing called stimming in public, which is flinging a thing like that, for example, shaking this, flinging anything, clenching your hand in a fist. How I apologize for the people that had to deal with me with this when I was younger, but I used to run away a lot. So that was something I had to learn not to do because of course you can't just run away because it's dangerous. But the thing about the story I'm going to talk about is personal growth. It's important for me because we evolved many times, and that is the thing with mental health too. We always evolve, we always learn, we have emotions, we have some bad days, but we learn from those bad days. We have different experiences, we learn about ourselves. And that's the thing that I'm talking about here. And as I say, life would be boring if we had no challenges. And I'm going to give a glacier analogy, then I'll talk about it, how it relates. So the glacier analogy is saying, like, today, when I drove in the glacier, it was really terrifying because I was worried I was going to get stuck in the rental car with my friend. I was terrified, I was stressed, and that represented me early in my life. I was worried I was never going to be capable of living the life I want to live. I was worried that because I have this label of autism, that I wouldn't be able to make friends. I wouldn't be able to want to travel or pursue relationships or find a job. And like the glacier, I was worried I would be stuck somewhere. I would be stuck metaphorically. And the glacier also represents the beauty. Like, yes, I was terrified and stressed that I would be stuck in the car. Like my life, I was worried I would be stuck in the car and stuck with this autism challenge. But like the glaciers, which were absolutely stunning, being a role model and talking about your challenges to teach everyone and make a difference is beautiful as well. And as I say, for example, some examples of challenges I faced were internal stigma. People saying things like, oh, he's autistic today because he's weird, or being weird or silly or whatever. Or if someone missed a shot, someone would have gone, they're autistic because they missed a shot, which essentially is giving the label of autism as uncoordinated, weird, strange, creepy, any bad connotation. And because of all of this, I didn't want to be me. So I tried to push away the label or try to find a cure for the label because I didn't want people to know I had autism. It was a horrifying idea. And like Josh with the accommodation example, I did not want to always use the accommodations either because I thought I was cheating. I thought people would think I was cheating, or I thought people, and I didn't want to explain the reason why I was using the accommodations. I didn't want to go, oh, it's because I have autism and I need a quiet space so I don't get distracted. But because I didn't want to explain it, sometimes I didn't take advantage of the accommodations that would help me out, which made my life a little more stressful. And the thing is, though, choosing challenges to take on is important, and life does throw challenges at us. As I say, having autism is very challenging sometimes. It's sometimes challenging because you can't read people's emotions. You get way more stressed out, way more anxious, which makes you overthink things, makes you check things too many times for me. It makes you question if you're good, if you're going to do things, if you're going to find a relationship, if you're going to be successful, and it drains your mental health. But the good news is the current state is not your permanent state, because as I say, the stigma or the self-stigma in this case is worse than the symptoms. Yeah, I'm a bit quirky. Yeah, I'm not the best at eye contact. And yeah, I sometimes shake my hand if I'm nervous. And yeah, I talk really fast when I'm excited. But the thing is, that's not that bad. People just think, okay, he's a cool guy. He's a nice guy. But the internal stigma is worse for me because I go, oh my God, they're going to think I'm weird because I'm shaking my hand. Or, oh my God, they're going to think I'm weird because I'm talking fast. Or, oh my God, I'm weird. Or, oh my God, they're going to think I'm this weird guy. But that's the thing I'm learning and realizing, like, hey, yes, I have autism, and yeah, I have mental health challenges, but I can still live a life that I want to live, which is why, as I say, I'm in Iceland in the midst of a 6-week trip, which is something I would have never thought I would do and people would have never thought I would have done it either. But as I say, I've done it, and I live with autism and mental health challenges. And my message here is, yes, I have these challenges, but I can still live the life I want to live, which is what I'm teaching everyone. And yes, I used to feel alone, a failure, weird, and I still sometimes feel all these things and all these self-stigmas. But doing things for your mental health really help. For example, nature, which is what I saw a lot of, exercising, sleeping well, drinking water. And that helps us because, as I say, sometimes we still have stigma that can't go away. As I say, none of us have no stigma. We all do a little bit. We all are insecure. We all might think we're not tough at all or can't do our mental health some days. But if we use the tools and start to work on being proud of our label, that's going to go a long way. And basically, as I mentioned, like, if you open up about your label and advocate for yourself, like Josh mentioned, advocate for yourself, be like, hey, man, I need to talk because I noticed you said something like this and I interpret it like this. Is this what you mean? Because if I don't advocate for myself in that scenario, my brain will go down a rabbit hole of, oh my goodness, he hates me because he seemed a little tense in that moment and I did something wrong, and oh my goodness, it's because I have autism, and then it goes down, down, down. So just to keep cautious of yourself and recognize, yeah, advocate for yourself, or go, oh, I need to exercise today, or oh, I'm sorry, I can't really go out tonight because I'm really tired and I need to sleep, or I'm gonna connecting flight, I'm gonna book a 3-hour layover so I don't have to sprint and rush myself to make myself more anxious. So the hopeful message is actually, there is no finish line in mental health, but I'm going to paraphrase with the brackets, the nice brackets, and say in autism, ADHD, any other mental illness. And my second message to end is, you have met one person with autism. You have met only one person. So yes, I have autism, but someone else is completely different. They could be artsy, they could be sporty, they could be introverted, they could be extroverted. So they're all different. And that's why I say, this is my story. It is unique to me. People may have faced similar challenges to me, may have had similar experiences or different experiences. But the thing is, about the beautiful thing about this mental health thing is that everyone has a different story. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Really always appreciate your authenticity, transparency, and inspiration. So thank you so much. Okay, and lastly, we have Samara, who's going to share her story. So Samara, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Andrea. And thank you to my other presenters today. I love hearing your stories. It's so inspirational to hear from other people who present with the Stigma-Free Society. So I'm going to share my story with you today about my lived experience with my learning disabilities and with my mental health. So I always knew that I learned differently. But as I went through elementary school, this difference became harder to ignore. I did well enough that none of my teachers had any real reason to worry, and honestly, my parents just thought I wasn't trying hard enough. But I knew differently. I was slow at reading, I couldn't understand simple math concepts, and spelling was always an extreme challenge for me. When you're young and you're trying your absolute hardest, but are still struggling to succeed, it can make you feel extremely insecure. I spent many years thinking that I was just bad at school. I put so much pressure on myself to be better and do better, but there was always something holding me back, and I couldn't figure out what it was. When I entered grade 6, I had moved to a new city, away from all the friends that I had since kindergarten, and started at a new school. From kindergarten to grade 6, I went to the same small school where all of the teachers knew me and understood my frustrations with learning. They were patient and kind and worked with my unique learning needs. This was not the reality I experienced at my new school. My teacher was strict and harsh and didn't understand why I was slower than my peers at certain things. He pushed me so much that I became frustrated and angry and constantly down on myself. This led to the beginning of my journey with anxiety. I had experienced anxiety before, but nothing like this. The best way I can describe how anxiety feels for me is like a picking. My brain feels like it's constantly picking, like there's an endless field of grass and each blade is a thought. And I have to pick every single blade one at a time. My brain is moving at lightning speed with this picking and picking and picking, and I can't stop it or slow it down. I just have to pick. My anxiety became so bad that I started refusing to go to school. I knew what awaited me when I walked into the building, so I would sit in the car with my mom every morning and refuse to go inside. When I was sitting in the car with my mom, I would experience what I now to be known as a panic attack. My heart would race, I would have difficulty breathing, I would be sweaty and cold at the same time. It scared me so much. I actually thought there was something physically wrong with me. One day I had missed so much school that the principal came out to the car to talk to me for about an hour about how I was feeling and what was stopping me from going into the building. I was really hesitant to open up to him at first and share what was happening in my mind. I hadn't talked to my friends or family or anyone about it. But finally, it had become too much, and I explained to him why I was missing school. I broke down. I told him that regardless of how hard I tried, I couldn't do certain things that seemed to come so easily to my friends, like math, spelling, and reading. He decided with my parents that I should be tested for a learning disability. Once I was diagnosed with dyslexia and dyscalculia, it was like something finally clicked for me. Dyslexia is a learning disability that affects my ability to read and spell. Some people have super severe versions of dyslexia, where the words appear backwards to them on the page or the letters look completely jumbled up. For me, this just means that I'm slow at reading and I struggle with the order of letters and words when I'm spelling. Dyscalculia is a learning disability that impacts your ability to work with numbers and to visualize things in your mind. For me, this means that math concepts are extremely difficult for me to comprehend, and I really struggle with directions and reading maps. The psychologist who had done the testing explained my learning disabilities to me so perfectly. She said, "You are not bad at school. Your brain is just wired slightly differently than most other people's brains, and you need a different kind of support to be successful. It has nothing to do with your intelligence." I was thrilled and relieved and felt seen for the first time in my life. Once I had this diagnosis, I was able to receive additional support from the teachers at my school and work with the learning resource teacher at my school. With my new support system in place, I was finally able to work with my brain instead of against it. This helped to ease my anxiety, but it didn't make it go away, not by any means. I still deal a lot with the internal struggle of self-stigma surrounding my learning disabilities. I often fear feeling judged by others or like I'm not as smart as everyone else because of the way that my brain works. This self-stigma that I experience contributes a great deal to my anxiety. As I've gone through my life, I've come to understand that while all of this stuff with my learning disabilities might have kickstarted my experience with anxiety, it was not the cause. I've spent years on a roller coaster with my anxiety. Sometimes it's extremely difficult to manage. I'll go through periods where I am so anxious that I can barely face my responsibilities. Other times it goes away enough that I almost feel like it isn't there. But just because I don't always feel it so strongly, it doesn't mean it's completely gone. I learned that having generalized anxiety disorder, which is what I was diagnosed with, is very different than feeling anxious from time to time, which most people have experienced. I also came to learn that having panic attacks is associated with the anxiety disorder that I have. Like with like with my learning disabilities, it took me a really long time to name my anxiety and to get it diagnosed. Once I was able to see for what it truly was, I could seek help for it, just like with my learning disabilities. It has taken me many, many years, but I finally started seeing a therapist that I connect with. And she helps me to work through the things that I feel anxious about. We talk and I share, and she helps me to see that while my anxiety can feel overwhelming, I'm not alone in it. She's always there to support me. It took me a really long time to find a therapist. I worried so much about the stigma associated with seeking help from a therapist. I initially believed going to therapy would mean that I was signaling to the world that there was something wrong with me. When I did start seeing a therapist, I didn't tell people I was doing so at first. Even now, I hesitate before I share with people that I'm in therapy. Why is this? Our society stigmatizes asking for help. It tells us that we should be able to handle all of our problems, fears, anxieties, and depressive periods on our own, and that reaching out for help makes us weak. This is not true. Receiving help from a therapist is brave. The work that I do in my therapy sessions is hard work, and it means that I have to expose some of the deepest, darkest parts of my brain to somebody else. It's vulnerable work, but it's necessary work, and it has made me stronger and more resilient. Coming to terms with both my anxiety and my learning disabilities has changed my life. I've learned how to be open and honest with my friends and family about things that I've struggled with on my own for years. Now, when I'm feeling anxious, I know I have people I can reach out to who can understand how I'm feeling and offer support. I know that I'm not just bad at school, and I'm capable of success. It just looks slightly different for me than it does for most other people. Not only did I finish elementary school and high school, I went on to do a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. I actually love school now, which is not something I ever thought I would think when I was an anxious kid feeling completely incapable of academic success. I actually decided to become an educator so that I could help kids who feel the way I felt when I was in school. I think the most important thing that I've learned through this experience is how to advocate for myself, like Nathan and Josh talked about too. This means that I've learned how to ask for what I need and to speak up for myself when my needs aren't being met. I've always been relatively shy and never wanted to feel like I was inconveniencing people with my needs. Over the years of being in therapy, I've come to understand that asking for what I need is not a bad thing. It just means that I'm owning who I am and what my boundaries and my limitations are. My experience with both my learning disabilities and my anxiety are unique to me. I can only speak to my own experiences, but I feel grateful to have been able to share my story with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Samara. Really appreciate you and sharing your personal story. Okay, well, we're coming to the end of our conference here. I really just opening up the floor for any comments if people want to type in the chat. If you want to ask any questions for the presenters individually or anything else about mental health, about stigma, we are definitely here to answer your questions. And so while perhaps somebody would like to do that, I just want to reiterate to come to stigmafreesociety.com. And there you could find out more about our programming. We also do so many more programs than the virtual school program. And we hope that educators will also visit our toolkits. The one that's specific to schools, student mental health toolkit.com, and you can find information on that on the website as well, which equips teachers and school counselors to talk about mental health, to teach about it, and to feel confident in the topic. All right. So I don't see any comments, but I wanted to thank everybody today for watching. It is a great pleasure to work with the Surrey School District as always. Another thank you to Daniel Toe, who always supports the Stigma-Free Society in such a great way. And we appreciate all of you out there. So live stigma free. Please take the pledge, and we appreciate you all. So thank you very much and take care.